Aloha and welcome to Virtual Live at the Legislature. I'm Carolyn Tanaka, and joining me this morning are Representatives Amy Perruso from Wahiawa and Representative Dale Kobayashi from Manoa. Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Well, you two, I like you guys because you are what we call here in the House the two freshman legislators. You're just finishing up your second session. I bet when you started, both of you, nobody knew we would be running into the coronavirus pandemic. So tell me, Representative Perruso, how's your community been holding up during this time? I know that you represent Wahiawa and Schofield Barracks, a lot of military there. How have your constituents been holding up?
I would say that it's been a pretty traumatic period. If I look back to the beginning of the pandemic and the impact that it's had on the community, and I represent Wahiawa, Whitmore Village, and Launani Valley. We do abut Schofield Barracks, but my district doesn't include Schofield Barracks. Many of the personnel, I would say, the vast majority of the personnel live in our community, so there is an interrelationship. But I would say that it feels as though the tension or the anxiety is easing now, but it has been a really difficult few months. So,
Representative Kobayashi, your district is Manoa. It's an older population, more established. How is your community holding up?
Pretty well. It's my community is not that, my district not so homogenous. While the majority of the district consists of Manoa Valley, which is really kind of an older residential community, I do go all the way down to the freeway and include parts of Macaulay, parts of Kaimiki, Punahou and University areas, which are really kind of diverse down there. So I think some of the economic issues, the calls I get tend to be people lower down in the district. And the more Mauka areas in Manoa tend to be a little more affluent, retired people who are kind of more concerned about the health aspects. And I get more problems with the economic issues as I go lower down in the district.
So as I said, that you were entering. This was supposed to have been your second session. It was abruptly and recessed. So what have you been doing while we've been in recess? I know that a lot of you have been having town hall meetings. In fact, Representative Amy, you just had one last night.
yes. So we had a virtual town hall. I think it was our fifth on public education and the pandemic in our community. And our complex area superintendent, a couple of principals, and a couple of teachers participated. So that was really useful. I've also been doing a lot of work. So I've been doing the virtual town halls around specific subject areas, issues for the community, trying to get decision-making parties in conversation to do problem solving. And the other main focus of my efforts has really been food and the community, right? So we recognize that with schools closed, students were going to not have access to regular meals. All of the schools in my district are Title I schools. So that means that the majority of those students are food insecure. So I work with the Department of Education to open more schools for meal delivery. And then I'm partnering with Kamehameha schools to do a ready-to-heat kind of food pan delivery in Whitmore Village. We do that weekly. So I think much of my work since we went into recess has really been community focused and kind of meeting the community where they are.
What about you, Dale? What have you been up to? Okay, Dale, I think you're muted. If you can unmute yourself.
Sorry. Okay, how's that?
Yes, welcome back.
So my first efforts have been trying to work with global contacts. My feeling was that we needed to have the best tests here available that were scalable, accurate, and I was working on trying to bring that in. So we had kind of a large effort to bring in tests from a firm in California, locally owned, Kahala Biosciences, and we're looking to fund that outside of the strictures of government. So I was working on that. That was kind of the big project, and for a lot of reasons that are somewhat difficult to understand, that was not something that we were able to do. A lot of it was based on who controls the equipment here. Following that, it appeared that that bureaucracy is going to be a little difficult to navigate. My expertise in the first place is not in any way health; it's economics. That's where I come from. So that's where I've been focusing on what we can do to recover from what is going to be an economic storm of biblical proportions that we're heading into right now. I look at all the estimates, and to me, it's they're all still lowballed. So I've been working on looking at what we can do here, which has kind of been my efforts for the last 2 years anyway. But just stepping it up, we're looking at first effort was if we could Major League Baseball had to have someplace to play. Trying to work with contacts to bring that here. That's we don't have the stadiums to do it. There's some possibilities with Japanese baseball. Some other things are just kind of more in my wheelhouse that trying to do. Maybe with some of the reduced minor league amateur draft, there might be opportunities there. So still working on things like that. Still working on the hedge funds and entrepreneurship, stepping that up, and really trying to get us on an economic footing here.
Well, let's walk down that economic road. Are you, to the two of you, are you pleased, satisfied with the way government has been handling the reopening of the economy? Amy, do you want to take that first?
I think that's still an open question because I think the pathway is yet unclear. I do support the refusal to fund the outside consulting group to chart a path for us. I think that's our job, that's our kuleana, and that's what legislators should be and can be doing right now in their districts is talking to their community, getting feedback, getting ideas, and really bringing community voices to the table. It's our future. So I think that I'm a little bit concerned that I haven't heard enough really imaginative thinking about how to move differently in post-COVID. And I do worry that we are just going to return to the status quo of mass tourism, which wasn't working for working class families before, and it wasn't working for our island. And I think that we have an unprecedented opportunity to really tap into the creativity and the capacity of our own community leaders to figure out a new direction. And I think a lot of that has to do with sustainable agriculture. I think a lot of it has to do with investing in climate change resilience and mitigation, and in public health. I think that if we use those COVID monies to create a community of care and to really invest in our institutions of public health, then we're not only going to be better off, but we're going to be a better place we'll be the center of the Pacific, of Oceania in that respect. And I think we can play a leadership role there.
And Dale, what about you? Economics is your forte. Are you pleased with the way government has been handling the reopening so far?
Well, that's it's kind of a tough question because there's the balancing of both the health and economic aspects. So as I mentioned, I'm really somebody that's an authority in one and a layman in the other. So To really say that, well, it's been too slow or too fast is really a judgment call involving both disciplines. I know from the economic side solely, if we're looking at what's going to happen if we don't open soon, it's every day it gets worse and worse. So, and that's not to say we should have done it faster or anything like that, because I'm no expert in health aspects of it. That whether that would have been a good idea or not, there are trade-offs involved. But for the economic side of the trade-off, we need to be a lot more ready to do so quickly. So because this is one of those situations where days matter, and I think the way to look at it in a long-term view is exactly like my colleague Amy Perruso was outlining, and that's really just such a bold vision that there are opportunities to change the way we do business here and to do things in a better, more sustainable, more citizen-friendly way than we had in the past. And that's a vision that I know I share with Representative Perruso, and that it's really an opportunity for us to look at this going forward to how we can do things differently and better.
Right. Yeah, I think we've only got about 1 minute left, and so I would like to end it quickly. If you could wrap it up, Amy. I know that you are a teacher by profession. Public education's taken a big hit. This in 30 seconds or less. What is your concern for public education in this COVID era?
My concern is that we won't use the opportunity offered by this moment to really rethink our priorities in public education. I think that the elimination of the standardized test was a gift that really let us think about, right?
Yes,
because
a lot of seniors yelling and clapping for that.
But I think that it helps us think about what is really important to us, and let's have conversations about that.
Right. And what about you, Dale? In 15 seconds or less.
I'd agree. I mean, I think she put it perfectly, that this is a time for us to reflect, think about what's important and where we need to go from here.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you to both of you for joining us this morning. It certainly was an interesting chat, and hope we can do it again soon. Thank you, Representative Perruso and Kobayashi. And aloha to all of you.
What are you doing? We have to go. I'm gonna be late for work.
It's Tuesday morning. I gotta record live at the legislature on Alelo. Senate and House leadership discussing what's happening at the state capitol.
So just watch it on the news tonight. Come on, let's go.
Hey, this is like getting the news before it's news. If only I could get this remote to work.
There. Can we go now?
No DVR? No problem. Watch Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. on Channel 49.
Good morning and welcome back to Live at the Legislature. For this legislative minority segment, our guest today is the illustrious Representative Gene Ward. He is the House Minority Leader and represents House District 17, Hawaii Kaida Kalama Valley, and he also happens to be my boss. Rep. Ward, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Kaio. I didn't know I was illustrious. I'm under house arrest in Hawaii, actually, but that's okay.
So today we're going to talk about a number of things today since we have some extra time. We'll start off with the budget shortfall. It came out recently that they're expecting it to be a little than we initially expected. And you had a call with the White House yesterday, I believe. Can you talk a little bit about that?
You know, let me paint the context. It's not bad enough to have a COVID-19, but then when you got riots on top of it, then you got the exhilaration of a space control. I call it the trifecta of three things converging at the same time. And it's like people are a little bit confused. It's hard enough to get your head around one of those without the other. But all of this impacts the budget. And that's the question. What are we going to do when you come back on June 15? And a lot of it's going to be about the budget. How are we going to allocate the rainy day funds? You know, we've got probably 1.2 billion in that fund. We're going to kind of adjust where we're going to put them. And those who think we're not helping those who are hungry or those who are hurting, all of those monies are going to be taken care of. It's just a matter of strategically waiting to see. And this is the big question. The Council of Revenues has said we're going to be down 12%. That's millions and millions of dollars. As we get closer to July, when they meet, when we actually know how much money is coming in, July is when all of the revenues have been postponed to. If you're filing your income tax, it's not due until July, the end of July. When you have your GT tax, it's also postponed. So we will never know until July how much money we got. So in a way, Kyle, we're kind of preparing on the 15th for probably another session, maybe August or July. And here's the danger points. At the end of July, the $600 that the feds are putting in expires. If we don't open our economy, and I suggest we open it on July 4, Independence and Freedom Day, because if we don't do that, we're going to go into a bigger hole. We're digging that hole the more that we postpone. So my suggestion is we have a date certain when we open the economy. When that money goes away, we're going to have to really scramble to either get a lot more tax increases, which people will despise because the cost of living is so astronomical already. Or, and my better suggestion is, and it's kind of what Representative Kobayashi said in the economic side, stimulate the economy, get businesses going, take away regulations, and get us back hiring and making money. But we're never going to do that without opening our economy. And if we don't open the economy, we're going to really, really be in bad shape. So the three things we're going to do in the session: allocate the rainy day funds, make an adjustment to the budget, and unfortunately read it and weep what the Council of Revenues got to say in terms of bad news about the money shortfalls. Before they said it was 1 million, I think that was the governor, 1.5 million, the legislature said 1 million, now it's probably 2.3. And I would agree with Dale, it's probably going to even be worse than that. I think we're lowballing it. So we got a lot of thinking on the horizon. We got a lot of planning, a lot of economic sense to proceed. And I'm not going to minimize the health, but we have been probably one of the best in the world in terms of cases for COVID-19. We've been one of the best to say with the least hospitalization and utilization of our facilities. So we're going well along our way. And now the governor says we're going to open our inter-island industry or airports without a 14-day test. That's probably a good way of piloting what we can do to open up for the larger visitors, Trans-Pacific. If we don't open up, but the bottom line is if we don't open up, we think we're in problems now. We're going to be really in deep kimchi, and I'm not even mentioning $100 million that the rail is short. Can you imagine all those guys getting laid off?
Yes.
Anyways, there's just a couple of opening comments.
Yeah. Back to the budget really quickly before I transition to what you had mentioned about the passengers. Are state layoffs for state workers and pay cuts something that you're concerned about? I think that was something that's floated around again, potentially due to the shortfall. You know, the governor kind of put a preemptive strike on the table when he mentioned it a few months ago. I said, hey, you first responders, hey, you teachers. I mean, like, the epicenter of those who are endeared by the population. I think there'll probably have to be some considerations on departmental cuts. If what the projected Council of Revenues is suggesting, I don't think there's a way we're going to get around it. We're going to borrow probably more money from the feds. We're probably into the 5 billion and up position. We've already actually, we've over borrowed the 18.5% congressional limit on budgeting.
So we've kind of filled the puka, and I say it's normal when a family is short money, and when a business is short money, they borrow it to get over the bridge. But when you get over the bridge, you got to have income to pay it back, and that's where my biggest concern is, that we go deeper and deeper in debt, and we let an economy that's kind of still dependent on tourism. And I think it's nice on farming, as mentioned earlier by our colleagues on the other side of the aisle. But from a government point of view, farming raises 0.05 or a 0.5% GT tax. If it's visitor industry, it's 4.5%. So you get a 400% return by getting tourism up and going, versus you get a 0.5% return to government in terms of that. Plus, agriculture is really tough to compete with on California scales and costs. And let me go on to say we have 6 strategic advantages. Now, these are realities. We don't have an agricultural advantage, even though we got 3 seasons. That's probably the only thing we got. We got the visitor industry, we've got defense industry, we've got the Hollywood of the Pacific, the movie industry. We have a very strategic advantage. The sports industry, Dale was talking about baseball from Japan. We could be the sports center of the Pacific. The space or astronomy industry. The great thing about, we're back into the space station with our own engines. There used to be Russian engines that were doing it. We are doing it on our own. And we've got a space force, which is on Kauai, which can be developed. So we've got a momentum in those 6 areas. And lastly, my favorite one, being that I'm an East West Center graduate, diplomacy of the Pacific. We have not pushed that to the Geneva of the Pacific, where people who have problems go to Hawaii instead of Geneva.
Rep. Ward, do you see those 4 other advantages? Tourism and military are kind of the big chunks of our economy right now, but the other 4 sports.
Those are the core, exactly.
Do you see that in the post-COVID world, as Carolyn talks about, those being developed even more now to diversify the economy?
Yes, with one condition. If Hawaii is the safest place to visit, and that leads us into what we're going to do in terms of pre-testing. If we don't pre-test visitors, they're not going to be secure feeling on their airplane, as well as they're in their hotel, as well as being in Hawaii. We are competing now just not on sand and surf and sea and sun. It's got to be another S, safety. We got to have safety involved in that. And if we do have a safe place to play diplomacy or football or baseball, people will come. But if they don't have a sense of security, a new kind of variable in the visitor industry, it's not going to work. And I understand now from Representative McDermott, who's the co-author, he's the lead author of this issue called, not the issue, the white paper called Making Hawaii Safe for Travel. In that, we have all of the ways of documenting how this can be done. And now Alaska is picking up and running with something like this. Bob said the other day, hey, they've copied our plan. They're taking it and running with it. Well, I think everybody, when they see what the options are out there, chasing people with temperature gauges, I mean, that's after the fact. Going and doing cohort thing, I mean, that's great. You can do it with different software. But in terms of really getting a sense, and it's not 100% proof, we've got to do pre-testing. White House says, you want to come and meet with somebody in the White House? Get over here and do a test. In 5 minutes, we know immediately. And right now, Gaio, there's so much money involved in it. If they get a 5-minute test to do the COVID with high reliability, as in Adam Smith, they're going to have a path beat to their door. So my sense is we're going to turn the corner with the test. We're going to get tourism going again, because if we don't do it by July, I think we're going to be really in the red ink, of which we are already big time in the red ink.
Do you think the June 16th deadline to quit the 14-day quarantine for inter-island travel, is that too late? Do you think it should be sooner?
I'm not doing this for Josh Green, but I'm going to quote him and say, Josh Green this should have happened July. It should happen earlier. Should have been June 1. We're about 10 days to 2 weeks behind. With that opening, my point is we probably need about a month pilot the neighbor island issue. And after that, say the end of June, then we can open the economy in July. As I said earlier, July 4, Freedom, Independence Day, get visitors industry visitor industry piloted based upon what we did with the inter-island piloting. And with that, I'd like to see Josh Green and Dr. Miskovich heading all this stuff up. Those are the guys who know what's going on. You know, I love Doctors Park and Anderson, but they don't get the bigger picture other than the stovepipe lane of what it says in medicine. We got to have lives and livelihood. Suicides are up, attempts 80% just last month. People are rioting as a catharsis. Well, there's a lot of more details in that than just the catharsis. But look, this is a nation, this is a world that's been under siege, and people are busting out. And with all the reasons why they've got one, probably George Floyd is probably one of the best reasons to go out and frustrate with the government. But what we've got to do is to plan the economics of the people as we are protecting their health.
So we have about a minute left to finish out.
Hey, we just got started. What do you mean? We're supposed to have extra time. We just got started.
SpaceX, I believe it was Saturday. It was a historic launching of the space shuttle, first time in about 10 years on American soil. Do you have any comment on that to close us out?
I was blessed to see that. I was inspired when I saw the men on the moon in 1969. It was like, wow, can we do that? Well, we can do it. We can do this and go on to Mars. As you know, I'm the founder of the Aerospace Caucus. Josh Green and I are the co-chairs of the National American States Aerospace States Association. So we follow this closely, and that's one of the growth industries. If we have the political will to do it, we could be doing a lot of these in space tourism. You know, that rocket that Elon Musk shot up will be eventually taking tourists where they go up about 65,000 feet and then they drop and they experience weightlessness. And that is something that tourists here would love to do. Having said that, there's a way out of this. We're Americans. We can get through this. This is a temporary phenomenon. It's going to be on the ash heap of history when we get beyond it. Right now, we got to get civility back into our society. We got to get this COVID-19 totally out and away from us.
Rep. Ward, thank you for joining us today on this extended session for today's Live at the Ledge. Everyone else, we will see you next week. Aloha.
Thank you and aloha. Aloha.